Hey everybody, Suz here, back with another keto dinner ideas video, and today is all about keto slow cooker recipes. I hope these easy keto crockpot recipes will help you stay on track with your keto or low carb diet. If you're new here, we make these videos every single week, and I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and join the crew. Let's get into it. First up, we're making this awesome slow cooker white wine and garlic chicken. So to start with, I'm taking 4 large chicken thighs, and I'm just putting a generous amount of Himalayan pink rock salt, as Dan recently corrected me that it's rock salt and not sea salt, although I guess all salt originally comes from space and seas that may not even any longer exist. It's rock salt now, as well as ground black pepper. And I'm just seasoning one side of these because we're going to put them in the crock pot and it's all going to cook together. So I just want to make sure the skin is well seasoned. I'm using my Instant Pot for this, and for the first time using the slow cooker feature on it, which I've never used before. And I'm just adding a couple tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil to the bottom of it, along with a tablespoon of minced garlic, a third of a cup of white cooking wine, and then I am doing 1 tablespoon of white wine vinegar and a half a teaspoon of dried thyme, along with a half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And I'm just whisking that all together really well until it's nice and combined. Now I'm just gonna sit my chicken thighs in the Instant Pot with the meat side down and the skin side up. And I just realized on at least my Instant Pot that there's not a high or a low setting for the slow cooker feature. So I'm just gonna have to do it on low, and I just cooked these for I think about 7 hours. And here is what they look like when they are all done. Now if you wanted to, you could take these out and pop them under a broiler for a couple of minutes just to crispen up your skin. I didn't want to do all that extra effort, so I just popped some cauliflower rice in the microwave with a little butter, salt, and pepper, and here is all served up. Of course, I just drizzled some of that white wine garlic juice, so to speak, all over that chicken, and it was absolutely delicious. And you could easily sub out some of those ingredients. If you didn't want to use the white wine, you could just use a broth on top. You could use a regular vinegar. You can leave it out. Basically, as long as you got the garlic in there and some liquid, this is going to turn out great. Next up, my favorite keto crock pot meal of the week, these easy 5-spice slow cooker baby back pork ribs. So to start with, in a little mixing bowl, I'm adding 2 teaspoons of 5-spice seasoning. Now this could be overwhelming for some, but we're doing the 2 teaspoons of that, and we're adding a teaspoon of garlic powder in with it and mixing that together. And that's really going to damper down the overwhelming taste of the seasoning, and it's going to be just right. Mixing it together, we're using about 3 pounds of these extra meaty baby back pork ribs, and again putting some of that pink Himalayan rock salt all over the top of these, as well as some ground black pepper. And then we're just going to take our 5-spice and garlic powder mixture and sprinkle that over the top of these ribs and rub it in really well. And again, if you don't like the 5-spice seasoning, you could easily do a different flavor combo for this. So to a big oval crock pot, I'll try to link this one down below. I'm adding about the equivalent of 1 jalapeno sliced up, and I'm just using the jarred jalapeno. To that, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. Make sure yours is just rice. And then I'm also adding 2 tablespoons of coconut aminos because I have it, but if you don't have it, you could use liquid aminos, you could use soy sauce, along with 1 tablespoon of regular tomato paste. Again, make sure no sugar added to it. And I'm just going to whisk this together until it's all combined really well. And then we're going to just plop our ribs in here sideways. You could use a roasting rack if you have one. I didn't have one that fit this. Popping the lid on, and I cooked mine on high for about 5 hours, but you could cook it low for 8 to 12 hours. And then here's what they look like when they're done. And I'm gonna pop these under a broiler. So I'm using some tongs. I went ahead and lined a baking sheet with nonstick foil, and I'm trying to break these apart in sections, like servings. And I'm just gonna line those on my baking sheet so that we can pop them under a broiler. Then I'm just gonna remove those bones that were left over and actually dump all of this liquid into a small saucepan. Now I did pop this in the refrigerator for a little while to try to help it settle so I could try to get some of this top layer of oil out of my pot. Went ahead and got my ribs on the baking sheet. I'm gonna pop these into a 400-degree oven for about 10 minutes to crispen up. And while those are cooking, I'm just getting that excess oil off the top. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can see I'm accidentally getting some of the regular sauce with it, but just getting most of the excess out with a spoon. And then I'm gonna bring this to a boil and then turn it off and let it simmer just while our ribs are finished cooking. And here it is served up. I did take a basting brush and brush some of that sauce over the top just to kind of make the ribs a little wetter. Served them with some steamed green beans I did in the microwave with butter, salt, and pepper, and then in a ramekin I poured a little bit of that extra sauce for us to dip our rib meat in. Oh my gosh, this was my favorite keto crockpot recipe of the week. I will definitely be making ribs like this more often, and like I said, you could play around with your flavor profile on this and use whatever kind of seasoning combo you want. So I'll probably mess around with that. I think some smoky paprika would be really good on these as well, with just basic salt and pepper. Next up, I threw together this bacon cabbage chuck roast, and I will link the original recipe below. I did change it up some. So in that same oval crock pot, I'm adding about a half a pound of bacon. I think I just did 7 slices and just lining the bottom of my crock pot with that. And then on top of that, I'm adding half of a medium onion that I just roughly sliced up, along with 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, and I'm just trying to evenly spread that around. And then I'm adding my chuck roast. I think mine's about 1.5 pounds. You could use a larger chuck roast, or you could use stew beef or another cut of meat. Putting a little bit of that Himalayan rock salt on top, as well as some ground black pepper. Again, only seasoning one side of this because it's all gonna cook down together. On top of this, I'm adding a bag of tricolor coleslaw mix. I think it's like 14 ounces. Just because I had it in the fridge, I needed to use it up. You could use regular cabbage, sliced up, or another type of shredded cabbage. And I am adding a little bit of salt and pepper to the top of that, as well as a half a teaspoon of thyme. And I'm doing 1 cup of beef broth to that. I usually use low sodium broth. I used regular one for this one. Cooking this low and slow for about 8 hours. Here it is when it's done. I'm just breaking apart that roast a little bit so that it's almost more like a stew. I didn't even stir this while it was cooking. So easy. And here it is plated up. This is absolutely delicious comfort food, great for these winter months, and a good keto crockpot recipe to just throw together for the middle of the week, as you don't even have to keep up with it or stir it. Lastly, we have this awesome easy keto taco soup in the crock pot. Oh my gosh, this was my favorite slow cooker recipe of the week. So to start with, using our Instant Pot again, I'm adding 2 pounds of ground beef that I just went ahead and browned and drained the excess grease out of. Adding to that a tablespoon of chili con carne powder, 1/4 of a teaspoon red pepper flakes, 1/4 of a teaspoon dried oregano, 1/2 of a teaspoon paprika, and then I'm adding 2 teaspoons of cumin. And she called for a teaspoon salt. I did 1/2 teaspoon salt, and then a whole teaspoon of ground black pepper. And I'm just gonna mix these dry ingredients in a little bit with our ground meat before adding in our tomatoes. Now they called for 2 10-ounce diced tomatoes with green chilies. I'm doing 1 14.5-ounce can of diced tomatoes, no sugar added, and a 7-ounce can of diced green chilies. These are like the mild ones. It's cheaper this way and easier, so that's what I did. You use what you have. Mixing that together a little bit before adding some broth. Now they called for 3 cups of either beef or chicken broth. I used 1/2 and 1/2 because that's what I had in the fridge. I had some remnants of chicken broth and beef broth, so I did 1.5 cups of each. And I know this is overkill, but they did 2 blocks of cream cheese. I think you could get away with 1, but I went ahead and added 2 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese, as well as 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. And then I'm just gonna take my spoon and kind of break this apart a little bit so it can melt down easier. I did not soften the cream cheese this week. I should have, but it all worked out in the end anyway. So I'm just chopping this in, and then I'm gonna mix it together a little bit. And as I said earlier, the Instant Pot, or mine at least, doesn't have a setting for low or high heat on the slow cooker feature. So you have to do it on low. So I think I cooked this for maybe 3 hours on low, regular slow cooker, because I was impatient. And I did stir it periodically to just mash down that cream cheese and break it apart really well. You could just cook it on high for like an hour or 2 in a regular crock pot and it would be great. Here it is plated up. I topped it with a tiny bit of sour cream, some freshly shredded extra sharp cheddar cheese, and a little bit of cilantro I had in the refrigerator. Oh my gosh, this was so good. Definitely my second favorite recipe of the week. And I really like that it's just so easy to make, especially, you know, sometimes I will pre-brown ground beef and just stick it in the freezer so I have it ready to go when I want to throw a meal together really quickly, and this recipe definitely would fit the bill for that. And of course, you can adjust it in so many ways. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this week's keto dinner ideas video, keto slow cooker recipes. All of these keto crockpot recipes are good go-tos if you're like me and you don't like standing over the stove and cooking all the time. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave us a comment down below. Any suggestions for future videos, share it with your friends, and make sure you're subscribed to our channel with your notification bell turned on so you never miss one of our weekly keto cooking videos. Thanks, y'all. Bye.